Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. I'll be presenting basic starting information about Epicor BAQs or Business Activity Queries creation. I'll demonstrate using the newer Kinetic interface, and as mentioned, remember to put any questions in the chat window for me to answer at the end of the presentation. Creating BAQs can involve many steps and tools. Today I'll show you some of the basics for the query creation, naming, and basic table information. We'll cover these topics, the items that help you get started using the data dictionary, field help, Excel template, SQL or structured query language if needed and available. We'll cover BAQ creation, naming, using the description, author, ownership, security, etc., and the query phrase, and tables used in your queries, how to use the tables, how to show the connected tables, and how to show the subqueries, table lists, table relations, or table criteria, subquery criteria, and table details. We're just going to have an overview of all of those. So you'll see where they're located, and then you can use them in your queries. We'll then just jump into adding some fields so you have a query to work with, and analyzing and running your query, and then a few of the overflow items where you can export or import or copy and delete your items. We'll go over these topics in more details on the following slides. So items that help you get started. One of the main areas you can use is the data dictionary viewer. Here you can see the path to the data dictionary viewer under system setup, system maintenance, data dictionary viewer. And this is the place to get all the details you can about Epicor tables, fields, indexes, and field details. The small picture in the upper left shows the path, as I mentioned, and the picture on the right side shows the example of one table, the ship via table here. And notice the green indicator showing this is a product table, which has the ERP schema. Other tables can be system tables, which have the ICE schema, or intermediate tables, which have IM schema. The middle grid shows the indexes for the tables. So those are how you can link between your tables. The index starting with the PK is the primary key index. The column names fields shows which fields are part of the index, and Kinetic, at least my version, had an issue and did not show them here, so I pasted them from the classic version into the Kinetic picture. The lower panel card shows the fields listed in the grid. So here you can see all the fields related to the ship via table, and notice that you have the buttons to sort them by schema or sort alphabetically. And finally, the last picture on the left here shows the details of one of the fields. So here we have the ship via code, and you have a description about it and the type it is, etc. Field help is another item that can help you get started in planning your BAQs. It can be used to show you basic information about the field, how the field is used, and the technical information that is useful for your BAQs or BPMs, which are business process management, and also for Application Studio customizations. You launch Field Help by clicking the Help button, the little question mark over here, and then the Help and Support Center, and that opens a slide out, and you check the box for display field level help. And then that will show all these little question marks next to your fields. So you would click on the question mark on the field that you want to view field help on, and then you can get your information. So there's a business description tab and a technical details tab. So the description shows here, and then I pasted the technical details tab also here so that you could see it in one picture. And on the technical details tab, most of the time what you're going to want to use for your BAQs is in the DB field. It should show the table name and the field name, similar to what is shown here in EpiBinding. Most of the time it's filled in, but not all of the time. And if it's not filled in here, you may have to be an investigator to find. It might be as it's listed in EpiBinding, or you're going to have to, search other tables to see if you can find where that database field is for your business activity query. So when a user requests a BAQ, ask them to provide you with an Excel spreadsheet. So if you have, a template that they offer you, this can help you determine what exactly they're looking for, what columns they want, how they want it formatted, and they can list some key formatting, what they want it sorted by groups and filters, and have the sample data. Then you can use the data dictionary or field help to find which tables and fields to use in your BAQ. Having the sample data will help to make sure you are getting the correct information that the end user wants. If you're not finding the information they requested, additionally, you can ask them for a picture of the screen where they see the field/information. And the last item that helps us get started with BAQs is the SQL or structured query language if needed and available. You can use that to help troubleshoot or find tables and fields if needed. If you're more familiar with SQL, you can create your query there and then translate into a BAQ relatively easy. Notice SQL shows the columns in the tables, the formatting of the columns, and the primary keys. Many of the formulas in SQL can be directly used in BAQs. For example, here we have the criteria for the open order equals 1, which means true that the order is open. That formula can be used as a criteria in your BAQ. So now we're going on to BAQ creation. In the kinetic form, you have your naming and description area here. Your query ID can only contain letters, digits, dashes, or underscores, and you can't begin it with a dash or an underscore. You might want to discuss naming conventions within your company, such as starting with the company ID or your initials or some other prefix. If you create specific types of query, you may want that to be the prefix. For example, the updatable BAQs, maybe you want to start them with that prefix of UBAQ for updatable BAQ. The description can be much longer, up to 1,000 characters, but information here that helps others know what your query is all about. Continuing on the BAQ creation, we'll talk about all the other fields on your query identification panel card here. The author will be the user who created the current business activity query. Owning company displays the company where the current BAQ was created. The security ID shows the security code used to give or block access to the selected BAQ. The shared checkbox indicates whether this query is available to all users within the current company that have the needed security. If you don't select this checkbox, the author is the only user who can use this business activity query. All companies controls whether the current BAQ definition is visible to all companies on the same database server. A system BAQ indicates whether the current BAQ was installed by Epicor when the Epicor ERP application was created. If the BAQ is a system BAQ, you cannot make changes to it. You would have to copy it and then make changes if you wish to. The cross-company checkbox indicates whether the selected query is a cross-company query, and as a result, your single query can bring back results across companies that you have access to. An external query, this checkbox is used to show if the query was created with an external data source. External data sources have separate security. Updatable checkbox is not available in the version that I started this presentation on, which is 2024.1, not in the kinetic version of BAQs, but it is in the classic mode. But it is available in 2025.1. So selecting this checkbox activates the sheets under the update tab for the query designer. And in 2025.1, they give you a new button on the side of the BAQ query creation that's used for updatable BAQs. And you use these sheets and panels that are available to indicate which fields will be available to update through this query. The query phrase is shown on the bottom half of your first tab when you go into BAQ creation, and as shown in the comments, it's a simplified version. It says for general vision and may not work in other tools. So this is a query representation of the GUI interfaces of connecting your tables, etc. However, usually you can copy and paste it into an SQL tool such as SQL Server Management Studio and tweak it a little to run as an SQL query. For anyone familiar with SQL, structured query language, this can be helpful for troubleshooting results. Most cloud customers will not have the SQL server available for working with your query to troubleshoot this way. So next you can see the tables used in your query and the different options that you have for tables. So here you have tables, connected tables, and subqueries. On the side here, it shows a tab for tables, connected queries, and subqueries. You can use the search box to search for your general tables. If you want to use a connected table, you would highlight one of the tables already in your query diagram here, and it would show you any related tables to the order head, for example, where Epicor knows that they're definitely connected. And if you have any subqueries in your business activity query, you can go to the tab that says subqueries to see them listed there. So to get started with your query, you're going to click this button, which is the query designer, and then you can add your tables and other tables as you need. For your base tables, Epicor will try to connect them by the key fields, but otherwise you may have to join them manually. Here I show only base tables, and by default, your main query is a top level query. You can see here it says top level. So it is a what they call a subquery, but it's called a top-level subquery. And that's the query that will show the display fields from any lower-level subqueries. There are also other types of subqueries, for example, union, union all, intersect, except, CTE, which is common table expression, and inner subqueries. Subqueries will be covered in a later presentation. So in addition, in your query diagram area on the lower half, you can see the tables list tab is the first tab, and it would list all of your tables that are shown in your query diagram. This particular picture, we show the tab for table relations, which those are shown when you click on the links between each of your tables. This shows the key fields that are used to link the two tables, and it shows the join type that's used to link between your two tables. So you can have matching, which means the fields exist in both tables, and you could have also, there's three other options, one that's like all from customer, one that's all from order header, or one that's all from both tables. The table criteria tab will show any criteria on the table that is selected in the design area. So you have to select your table first, and then the table criteria will show any criteria you already have or will allow you to use the plus sign to add table criteria. And it's similar in the next tab for subquery criteria. So you'll have any criteria related to subqueries there. And then the last tab shows the table details. So if you have a table highlighted, for example, your order head table, in the query diagram, then you'll see all the, well, not quite as many details as the data dictionary, but some of the details, including the names of the fields that are in the table, the type of field, and a description of the field. You might use that option instead of opening the data dictionary. So here we get to the meat of your query design. Next, you move to this button here that says display fields, and you'll have the available tables that were in your query diagram. So you can select from the drop-down box which table you want to choose, and then you can select which fields you want to include in your BAQs. So you would check whatever fields you want to use and click the right arrow button to move them over on this side. And then you also have the other arrow buttons to, if you would click one of these, you can move them up or down or move it back that you don't want it in your query, for example. And you're going to repeat that for each field you need from the table. And don't forget to save your query at some point before you get too far into the development, and save intermittently also. So then to verify the results of your query, you would use the analyze and run options. So you need to click this little button here that would bring you to the screen that says run query here, and you can analyze. You can click that query button to verify you do not have any syntax errors or other errors. They would show in the problems area down here if you had any errors. Then click the test button to run the query and see some results. So you can test here and see some results down there. If all looks good, you should also verify, at least spot checking some results. Are they the expected values in each column? Finish by saving your query and making sure to share it if you want others to use it, or you want to use it in a dashboard or elsewhere in Epicor. Notice the messages on the bottom also give you information about how many records were returned and how long it takes. I'll cut that off in my picture, how long the query takes to run. So the last main area we're going to cover today is the overflow items, just a few of them. Here we have showing in the overflow menu that you can export or import queries. So when you're in the query designer or in the main tab where you defined your query name, etc., you can use that overflow menu. You may want to do that for backup or for testing your query in one environment and moving it into a live environment. You will export a file to a file location and then import from a file location. And the other two items that we'll discuss in the overflow are copy query and delete query. So often I copy a query to test further changes while leaving the original query in place. Using this option allows me to test changes and revert back if needed to the original query. Then I can make changes on the original query after that testing, especially if it's used on a dashboard, for example. And then you also have the option to delete a query from your overflow menu. So you can delete the copied query once you make your original query as you need it.